Be me Aaron, 32 software engineer, married to Mary for 5 years. Life was, on paper, pretty damn good. We had the house with the yard, 2 decent cars, and jobs that paid the bills with enough left over for vacations. I thought this was the dream. You work hard, you find a partner, you build a life. Simple. Except it wasn't simple. Mary works in HR, and somewhere along the way, her job became her entire personality. Everything was a microaggression, a problematic narrative, or a symptom of systemic inequality. A commercial for a pickup truck wasn't just a commercial. It was a celebration of toxic masculinity. Me offering to carry the heavy groceries wasn't me being helpful. It was me reinforcing outdated gender roles. I learned to just nod. It was easier. The path of least resistance. The constant low hum of analysis was exhausting, but I figured it was a small price to pay for peace at home. Our partnership, as she called it, felt less like a team and more like a never-ending audit of my behavior. I was always one wrong word away from a lecture. I just wanted to come home, relax, and not have to deconstruct the societal implications of a sitcom. But the peace I bought with my silence was fragile. I knew that. I just didn't know what would be the thing to finally shatter it. Then, I got a call on a Tuesday afternoon. It was my aunt. My dad had a massive heart attack at his workshop. He was gone before the ambulance arrived. The world just stops in a moment like that. I remember hanging up the phone and just standing in the kitchen, unable to process anything. Mary came in and saw my face. I told her what happened. She was efficient. She hugged me for about 3 seconds, then immediately switched to logistics mode. She started asking about funeral arrangements, if I needed to take time off work, if there was a will. There was no real emotion. It felt like she was managing a difficult employee situation. I was in a fog for the next few days, planning the funeral, dealing with relatives, and trying to hold it together for my mom. My mom, Eleanor, was completely adrift. She and my dad had been married for 40 years. He was her rock. He handled the finances, the home repairs, the cars, everything. She was from a generation where that was just how it was done. He took care of things, and she made a home. Now, half of her world was just gone. She looked so small and lost. The funeral was tough. I saw friends and family I hadn't seen in years. Everyone was kind and supportive. Mary, on the other hand, seemed uncomfortable the whole time. I saw her checking her phone during the eulogy. Later, at the wake at my mom's house, she made a quiet comment to me about how patriarchal the whole ceremony was, how the focus was all on his accomplishments and not on their partnership. I didn't even have the energy to respond. I just walked away. In the weeks that followed, the reality of the situation began to sink in for everyone. My mom was struggling, not just emotionally, but practically. The lawn was getting overgrown. A light fixture in her hallway was flickering. She didn't know how to pay the property tax online. She never asked for help, not once. She'd just mentioned things in passing when I called to check on her. "Oh, the lawnmower won't start again, silly thing." Or, "I got another one of those confusing letters from the city." So I started going over. Every Saturday, I'd drive the 25 minutes to her house and spend the day there. I'd mow the lawn, fix whatever was broken, help her sort through paperwork. Sometimes we'd just sit and have coffee. She'd talk about my dad, and I'd listen. It felt like the right thing to do, the only thing to do. She was my mom, and she needed me. This did not go over well with Mary. At first, it was subtle. I'd get home Saturday evening, tired and covered in dirt from working in the yard. The house would be silent. She'd be in her office with the door closed. Dinner wouldn't be started. No, "How was your day?" Just this thick, disapproving quiet. Then the comments started. They were small and sharp. "Did you have a nice time playing handyman at your mommy's house?" Or I'd mention something my mom said and she'd roll her eyes. Of course she doesn't know how to reset the Wi-Fi router. It's learned helplessness, Aaron. I tried to explain that this was a huge adjustment for my mom, that she was grieving. Mary saw it differently. According to her, my mother was using emotional manipulation to keep me in a state of childish dependency. My father, she explained, had created this dynamic by never empowering my mother to be self-sufficient. And now I was stepping in to continue his patriarchal legacy of control. I was just trying to help my mom figure out her bills. She was talking about a patriarchal legacy. We were living on different planets. The arguments started getting worse. One Saturday, I was at my mom's, helping her clean out my dad's old workshop. It was an emotional day for both of us. My phone rang. It was Mary. She sounded annoyed. She and her friends had decided to go to a wine tasting, and she expected me to join. I told her I couldn't, that I was in the middle of something important at my mom's. She got quiet for a second, then said, "Fine, just don't expect me to wait up," and hung up. I got home around 9 p.m. The house was dark. There was a note on the counter. Had to get out of the house. Don't know when I'll be back. This became the new pattern. My Saturdays were now a source of constant tension. Mary would deliberately schedule things without telling me. "Oh, didn't I tell you? My friend Jessica is having a barbecue on Saturday. We have to go." I'd tell her I had already promised my mom I'd help her with her garden. That would trigger another lecture. Why was my promise to my mother more important than our social life as a couple? Was I ever going to cut the cord? She claimed I was letting my mom infantilize me, and that my need to fix everything for her was a symptom of toxic masculinity. Apparently, a real, enlightened man would empower his mother by letting her struggle and figure it out on her own. She said I wasn't helping her. I was crippling her to make myself feel important. The cognitive dissonance was staggering. I was a bad guy for helping my widowed mother. It felt like I couldn't do anything right. If I spent money on materials to fix a leaking pipe at my mom's, it was money that could have gone toward our vacation fund. If I spent my time helping her, I was neglecting our relationship. Our home stopped feeling like a sanctuary. It felt like a courtroom where I was always on trial. My friends noticed the change in me. I was more stressed, quieter. One of my best friends, Dave, asked me what was going on. I gave him the short version. He just shook his head. He said, "Man, you're a good son. Don't let anyone make you feel bad for that." It felt good to hear, but it didn't change the reality waiting for me at home. Mary's friends, on the other hand, were her echo chamber. I'd sometimes overhear her on the phone with them in the other room. She would paint this picture of herself as a patient, long-suffering wife, shackled to a man-child who couldn't leave his mother's side. She'd use all the buzzwords: my emotional labor, her mental load, our unbalanced power dynamic. They would eat it up, telling her how strong she was and how she didn't deserve this. It was a complete distortion of reality, but it was the narrative she was building, brick by brick. The situation reached a new low sometime in the fall. My mom needed to see a specialist for her arthritis, and the office was about an hour away. She was nervous about driving that far by herself, so I took the day off work to take her. It was an all-day affair: the appointment, the pharmacy, then getting her settled back at home. I told Mary about it a week in advance. She just nodded, a look of disapproval on her face. The night before the appointment, she blew up. It started with a simple question. "So, you're really going to take the whole day off?" I said yes, that's the plan. And the floodgates opened. She went on a long tirade about how I didn't respect my own career, how my mother should be independent enough to take a taxi or an Uber. Why does she need you to hold her hand? She's a grown woman. I tried to explain that it's not about need, it's about support, about being there for family. That's when she said it. "You know, Your dad is the one who did this to you. He filled your head with all this toxic protector nonsense, this idea that men have to be the saviors. He's the reason you're like this. To bring my dead father into it, that was a line I didn't think even she would cross. I didn't yell. I didn't raise my voice. I just felt something inside me go cold. I told her she was out of line and that the conversation was over. I slept on the couch that night, not because she kicked me out, but because I couldn't stand to be next to her. The next day, driving my mom to her appointment, I felt this strange sense of peace. It was quiet in the car. We listened to the radio. It was normal. There was no tension, no hidden meanings, no ideological warfare. It was just a son helping his mom. Coming home that evening was like bracing for impact. The Cold War continued for the next few months. We were roommates, not husband and wife. We spoke only when necessary. The air in our house was thick with unspoken resentment. I kept helping my mom. I refused to let Mary's behavior stop me. If anything, it strengthened my resolve. It became a matter of principle. I was not going to abandon my mother, especially not now. Mary saw this not as loyalty, but as defiance, and she couldn't stand it. She was used to winning arguments. She was used to me eventually caving in for the sake of peace. But something had broken after she brought up my dad. The peace was already gone. I had nothing left to lose by standing my ground. I think she realized she was losing control over me, and it terrified her. People who build their identity on being in control don't react well when they lose it. They don't reflect. They don't compromise. They double down. I didn't know it yet, but she was getting ready to make her final move. She was preparing for the checkmate. The winter was long and cold, both outside and inside our house. Spring arrived, and with it came the big thaw, or, in our case, the big flood. I remember it was a Saturday, one of those first truly warm days of the year. I had promised Mary that we would spend the day together, working on our own yard. It was an olive branch. I was still trying, foolishly, to salvage things. We were outside, pulling weeds, when my phone rang. It was my mom. She sounded panicked. There was water everywhere in her kitchen. A pipe under the sink had burst. She had tried to turn off the main valve, but couldn't get it to budge. Water was pouring out fast. I told her I was on my way. I turned to Mary, who had heard my side of the conversation. Her face was a stone mask. "Mom's kitchen is flooding. I have to go, right now." I expected an eye roll, a sigh, maybe a sarcastic comment. What I got was a cold, hard glare. "No," she said. I thought I must have misheard her. "What do you mean, no? It's an emergency." She dropped the gardening gloves she was holding. "There's always an emergency, Aaron. It's always something with her. You promised today was for us, for our home." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Mary, there is water actively destroying her kitchen as we speak. This isn't a leaky faucet. I need to go." I started walking toward the garage. She stepped in front of me, blocking the door. Her expression was one I'd never seen before. It was a combination of fury and absolute self-righteousness. She was convinced, down to her very core, that she was the wronged party here, that this was my final test. Her voice was low and steady, each word chosen for maximum impact. "This has gone on long enough. For months, I have watched you put her before me, before our marriage. I have been patient. I have tried to make you see how unhealthy this dynamic is, but you refuse to listen." I just stared at her, my car keys clutched in my hand. "So now you're going to make a choice." My mind was racing. My mom was alone, panicking, while her house filled with water. And here I was, being held hostage by a lecture. "This is it, Aaron," she said, her voice rising. "I am done competing. I am done being the second most important woman in your life. You have to decide. What is more important, your past or your future. It's her or it's me. She stood there, blocking my path, radiating this aura of absolute certainty. She thought she had me. She believed that 5 years of marriage, a mortgage, and a shared life were chains she could pull, and I would have no choice but to heal. She laid out the ultimatum, it's her or it's me, and watched me, a small, triumphant smile playing on her lips. She was expecting me to crumble, to beg, to promise I'd change, that I'd set boundaries with my own mother. In her mind, the game was already over. She had just declared checkmate. There was no hesitation, no internal debate, not even a flicker of doubt. It was like a switch flipped in my head. All the months of lectures, the eye rolls, the passive aggression, the disrespect toward my family, it all coalesced into a single moment of absolute clarity. I looked her dead in the eye. My voice was completely calm. Her. The triumphant smile vanished from her face. It was replaced by a look of flat, uncomprehending confusion. "What?" she whispered, as if she didn't trust her own ears. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. The finality was in the tone, not the volume. "I choose her," I said again, enunciating each word. "Now, please get out of my way." She just stood there for a few seconds, completely frozen. Her brain was trying to process an outcome that she had never, for one single second, considered possible. The illusion of her control was shattered, and the shock was visceral. Then, the confusion morphed into rage. A deep, ugly red flush crept up her neck. "You can't be serious," she hissed. "You're throwing everything away? For her?" I stepped to the side and walked past her toward the garage. I didn't look back. "You're the one who made it a choice, Mary. I just gave you the answer you asked for." I could hear her scrambling to follow me. Her voice got louder, more frantic. "That's not what I meant. We were supposed to talk about this. You're twisting my words." I opened the car door. "There's nothing to talk about. My mom's house is flooding. I'm leaving." The desperation in her voice was a new sound. It was the sound of someone realizing they'd pushed the self-destruct button and couldn't stop the countdown. "Aaron, if you walk out that door right now, we are done. Do you understand me? Done." I paused for a second, my hand on the car door. I turned around and looked at her. "We were done the moment you used my dead father as a weapon against me. We were done the moment you decided my love for my mother was a character flaw. You just didn't know it yet. Get your things." I got in my car, started the engine, and backed out of the driveway without another look. The drive to my mom's was surreal. I wasn't angry. I wasn't sad. I just felt light. A weight I didn't even realize I had been carrying for years was just gone. I wasn't worried about the argument waiting for me when I got home. There would be no argument. There would be no home, not for us. It was over. When I got to my mom's, it was as bad as she said. Water was an inch deep in the kitchen and seeping into the dining room. I found the main valve in the basement and managed to wrench it shut. The gushing sound from under the sink finally stopped. My mom was on the verge of tears, apologizing over and over for bothering me. I just hugged her and told her it was okay, that we'd fix it. For the next 3 hours, we worked together. We used towels and a wet vac to get up most of the water. I called a 24-hour plumber. He came out and confirmed the pipe was completely corroded. He replaced the whole section under the sink. By the time he was done, it was almost midnight. The immediate crisis was over. The damage was done, but the house was no longer actively flooding. My mom made me a sandwich. We sat at her small dining room table, the floor still damp around us. She asked if Mary was upset with me for leaving. I just told her that Mary and I were separating. She didn't pry or ask a lot of questions. She just reached across the table and put her hand on mine. "I'm so sorry, sweetie," she said, her eyes full of concern. "Don't be, Mom," I told her. "It's for the best." And I meant it. I drove home in the dead of night. The roads were empty. I expected to see Mary's car in the driveway, but it was gone. The house was dark and silent. I walked inside. On the kitchen island, right where she'd left her angry note months before, was my wedding ring. Next to it was the key to the house. A part of me was surprised she had actually left. Another part wasn't. She was proud. She couldn't stand the humiliation of being there when I got back. I walked through the quiet house. I went into our bedroom. A few drawers in her dresser were open and empty. Her closet had some noticeable gaps. She had taken a suitcase of clothes, her laptop, and her personal things. The place already felt different. It felt calmer. I slept better that night than I had in years. The next morning, I got a text from her. It wasn't an apology. It was a demand. She wanted to arrange a time to get the rest of her things, and she informed me that her lawyer would be in contact. I replied with a simple, "Okay." No emotion, no drama, just the facts. This drove her nuts, I think. She was expecting a fight, tears, pleading. She was getting gray rock silence. A few days later, a letter from a law firm arrived, the official start of divorce proceedings. My friends were worried about me. They called to see how I was holding up. They were surprised by how calm I was. Dave said he'd never seen me so relaxed. I told him I felt like I had just woken up from a long, stressful dream. Mary had her friend Jessica with her when she came to get her stuff. They probably thought I'd be emotional or difficult. I wasn't. I stayed out of the way, working in the garage. I told them to take whatever they believed was theirs. I could hear them whispering in the house, snatches of conversation about how cold I was being, how I clearly never cared. It was their narrative. They could have it. The divorce process moved forward. Mary's initial legal posture was aggressive. Her lawyer sent a list of demands that was honestly laughable. She wanted the house, half my retirement savings, and alimony. She claimed that her emotional labor in supporting my career and managing our household entitled her to it. Her lawyer tried to paint a picture of a controlling husband and a dependent, unsupported wife. It was a work of fiction. Luckily for me, I had been smart about one thing. Before we got married, my dad, a very practical man, had insisted I get a prenuptial agreement. I was young and in love and thought it was unromantic and cynical. He told me, "You don't buy a fire extinguisher because you expect a fire. You buy it in case one happens." I had almost forgotten about it. Mary certainly had. When my lawyer presented the signed, notarized prenup in response to her demands, her case completely fell apart. The agreement was simple. What was mine before the marriage remained mine. What was hers remained hers. Anything acquired jointly would be split 50-50. The house was bought with the down payment from an inheritance I received from my grandmother. The prenup protected it. My retirement account was started long before I met her. Protected. Her attempt to claim alimony was shut down because she had a good job with a salary almost equal to mine. Her entire legal strategy evaporated. The battle she wanted was over before it began. Faced with the reality of the prenup, she had no choice but to settle. We sold her car, which was in both our names, and split the money. I had to buy her out of her small share of the equity the house had accrued in our 5 years together. That was it. Long story short, she walked away with what she came in with, plus a decent check. Not the windfall she and her lawyer had imagined. I spent the next few months reclaiming my own life. I helped my mom fix the water damage in her kitchen. We ripped out the old linoleum and put in new flooring. We repainted the whole room. Working on a project together, side by side, was therapeutic for both of us. She started getting her confidence back. She even signed up for a basic computer class at the local community center. I got back in touch with old hobbies I had let slide. I started hiking again on weekends. I went to ball games with my friends. I realized how much of myself I had compressed to fit into Mary's world. How many small joys I had given up to avoid a lecture or an argument. I heard about Mary through the grapevine. Her friend Jessica's husband is a guy I know from a local club. He told me the story. Mary had stayed with Jessica for about 2 weeks, filling her head with stories of my cruelty and emotional abandonment. But then the novelty wore off. Having a bitter, angry houseguest who analyzed every little thing became draining. Her other friends were the same. They offered supportive texts and angry face emojis on social media, but none of them wanted her living in their spare room for long. Her ideology of sisterhood was great in theory, but didn't translate into someone offering her a place to live for 6 months. The last I heard, she was renting a small apartment across town. Her social media, which I looked at once out of morbid curiosity, was a predictable stream of vague, passive-aggressive posts about toxic men, the importance of knowing your worth, and cutting negative energy out of your life. She was the hero of her own story. In her mind, she had bravely escaped a stifling, patriarchal marriage. She hadn't been defeated, she had been liberated. Whatever helps you sleep at night, I guess. It's been about a year now. The quiet in my house is no longer the silence of tension. It's the silence of peace. I go to my mom's for dinner once a week. She's doing great. She's even started dating a nice widower from her gardening club. My life isn't dramatic. It's not exciting in the way a movie is. It's just calm. It's my own. Mary thought she was presenting me with an impossible choice. She thought she was holding all the cards. But she fundamentally misunderstood the game. She was forcing me to choose between a person who demanded everything and gave conditional approval, and a person who gave me life and asked for nothing in return. A choice between a fragile partnership built on ideology and a lifelong bond built on unconditional love. When you see it like that, it's not a choice at all. It was the easiest decision of my life.